What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It looks like we got another sneak peek here. First coming on Twitter, and then we'll check out the forums, and then we'll take a look at YouTube. But it's pretty self-explanatory. They're not pulling any trickery here. They're not making any guesses. It's pretty straightforward about what we're kind of getting. It does confirm what we suspected from the last sneak peek, that we might be getting some updates to the symbiotes, and this one is definitely no different. Here on Twitter, it says the symbiote has done many hosts, which we'll touch on in a little bit here. In the V605 update, her scream will be the last thing you hear. So nothing, any misdirection here. It's pretty self-explanatory that we're going to be getting Scream as a character, who is a derivative of Venom, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But over on the forums, it says, the October sneak peek number 2, greetings agents, the CM Fragment as always. Symbiotes everywhere are beginning to rampage. One in particular has made a striking reappearance, so that's we'll talk about that as well. She will stand as another alien villain or the greatest protector. Can you hear the scream? And then we'll see this. Prepare yourselves for the hair-raising powers of Scream. We'll talk about that as well. But please welcome our new hero. So that's very, very interesting that they kind of let out the word hero there. But let's take a look at this clip and see what we got. It's pretty sweet there. We've got a couple of things going on that we want to kind of break down a little bit. It says no noise here, which I thought was kind of funny on the signage on the outside, the fact that the character's name is Stream, and then it says no noise. But there are a couple of things in this preview that we do want to talk about. Scream's character, if you don't know, she's mostly yellow and black. But so that's what we're seeing here, a little bit of the background. The chains is going to be something I want to call out as well, because it is prominent, and there's a connection to maybe a greater storyline that we've got here. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the character itself. Scream, as previously stated before, is a derivative of Venom, the Venom symbiote that kind of takes over. She is one part of the 5 that are here. So Lasher, Phase, Riot, and Agony. Probably Riot and Agony are the 2 more popular ones. The other popular ones outside of Scream. They were all... Scream is more or less their leader, so to speak. They're all from the Life Foundation, which you see a glimpse of them in the Venom movie. But her first appearance is during the 90s. She's very, very present in Venom's comics, in his solo runs. Her story is always heavily involve Eddie Brock, whether it's getting Eddie Brock to help her be a better leader, help control the symbiotes that have taken over, to beat them, any number of different things. So at this point, I'm willing to put some guesses and bet that Venom is going to be our tier 3 in this update. We'll talk about Carnage as well. I'm sure we're going to touch on that a little bit, because the 2 are so closely linked. Whether or not Venom will get a new uniform, that'll be interesting. He definitely needs one. There are a couple of ways that they could go about getting a new uniform for him, including something like introducing Toxin, which is for a time does take over Eddie Brock. So it's whether or not they go the route of, is this Venom or is this Eddie Brock? Because there technically are 2 Venoms in the game. There's an Agent Venom, as well as who is not Eddie Brock. It's Thompson. And then we have Eddie Brock, who is Venom. So if they go Toxin, there is a time where Toxin takes over Eddie Brock. So that would be a uniform there. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But as we can kind of see here, Scream takes over for originally Dr. Diego, is most notably sort of the main host, and it has that run for quite a bit some time. There have been others more recently, especially in the Absolute Carnage run, where she's a little bit more crazy. She always, Donna Diego already heard voices before she was taken over by Scream, so that's not something new that was brought on by the character. She already had, she's a mentally ill patient, sort of always hearing voices, a la schizophrenia, so to speak. But more recently, she's been taken over by Patricia Robertson as well as Andy Benton. Andy Benton is the one that's more prominent in Absolute Carnage. So that's going to be where we kind of want to land this speculation for the theme of the update itself. We've always had an affinity for Donny Cates' work. It's something that the Marvel dev team has consistently relied upon. So Absolute Carnage is a piece of that. There's a comic book run where there's other comic book runs where she's featured as like the symbiote that there's an invasion on Earth, which is what was talked about the last update. Donna, most notably, is obviously a surviving member of that invasion. She's one of the last few. So there is some tie-ins otherwise, but for this one specifically, Scream is prominent in Absolute Carnage, where Noel resurrects her from Donna's corpse. So Donna dies, spoiler, right? Donna dies, and Noel is able to resurrect the Scream symbiote from her body. She bonds during that run. She bonds with Andy Benton. So that is something that we may kind of see whether or not this is just a character, the symbiote itself, or is the human just rotating a la, well, actually, I don't know if there's any other characters in the game that do that. Otherwise, we just mainly focus on the character themselves, and there's a couple of iterations of it. But again, with it being related to Absolute Carnage, we may suspect that we may get a null appearance or something like that. So that's definitely worth noting and just worth keeping an eye on. Typically, we get 2 new characters, so we're kind of at their limit, having Spider-Woman on the first sneak peek and then Scream on the second one. But there are fan favorites that are missing, like Riot and Agony, 2 other ones that are derivatives from the Venom symbiote. And then obviously we're already suspecting that Spider-Woman is the Awakened character, so maybe there's another one in there. But the last couple of updates, we have had 2 new characters and kind of gone from there, right? So we'll have to kind of see. In terms of a power set, Scream is likely to be a lot like, to be honest, she doesn't have any sonic powers like Black Widow or Black Panther, Black Bolt, but she does have some hair powers, just like Medusa. She uses her hair as a weapon. She's probably going to play maybe a mix of Medusa and Carnage, so we'll have to see whether or not she lands as a combat or a universal character. Definitely going to be female. In the sneak peek, it does say hero on the forums. It does say, she plays more of the role of the anti-hero more often than not. So whether or not she'll come out as a hero will be very interesting for the meta in terms of ABX and things of that nature. So we'll have to see. In terms of other powers, she is also a shapeshifter. She does camouflage. She kind of goes completely ghost with that. She has an all black face, as you can see in most of her images. So she does camouflage a little bit. She does have healing, just like and invulnerability, like a lot of the other symbiotes do. In terms of other powers you can expect is probably some super strength, some wall crawling, some web slinging. She's, like I said, probably going to be a mix between Carnage and Medusa in terms of playstyle. So we'll kind of see how that kind of goes over. I do want to also do the weekly updates in terms of in-game. Let's see what we got kind of happening here. In terms of this week for a weekly updates, I completed the heroic quest for Arachnite, so I'm no longer done with that. I restarted another one with Iron Fist for the time being, as we're kind of waiting to see what happens. I did finally roll a rage the way that I wanted it to. It is now going to end up being on Professor Xavier as opposed to Doctor Strange, which was I was debating before. But our roll ended up being very, very high dodge, about a mid-grade crit rate. So we'll be slapping that on Professor X when we get the BIOS for it. In other news, we've got a couple of pre-update BIOS coming, so be mindful of that. Make sure you're picking up your event stuff there. In terms of other kind of pieces, most of the gameplay that we've seen from Blade has been pretty good. He's definitely decent, but he is certainly missing that healing factor that, to be honest, should be on his kit, but for whatever reason, the dev team decided not to put that there. So there's that. So look out for a little bit of those updates. I did end up rolling some gear sets for 2 newer acquired characters, iOS 08 sets, Power of the Angry Hulk, as well as Arachnite. I do have a video coming out about how to build characters, so I will finally edit that, put that together so you can kind of see why most folks will play offensively. And kind of where the methodology for rolling an iOS 8 set comes from. And we'll kind of do a deeper dive in that. It's going to be a 2-part video simply because I want to cover early to mid game and then mid game to late game, because the methodology is different. There is probably going to be another video following that about crystal spending and where the dev team should really look at changing the way that we spend crystals, especially when it comes to something like unequipping Uru, because it's counter to the fun of the what I find when what I think a lot of players find in the game itself is being able to adjust a set as they increase their increase their card set overall. But I don't want to keep you guys for too long. I really want to kind of just cover both of those at the same video. Until next time, though, thanks again for your comments. Checking out the stream. I always greatly appreciate that. If you guys have any questions about sort of what we got going on with the sneak peek, or, I mean, what do you guys, at the end of the day, think of Scream coming to the game? I know that she's a lesser known symbiote, but it's not a nice addition that she's a female. And whether or not she'll be, let me know in the comments whether or not you think she'll be a universal character or a combat character or speed class character, all of which need a good female, both villain and superhero. So we'll see. We shall see. But until next time, be good, do good, stay safe, and I will see you guys soon. Okay.